It all started on a quiet Thursday morning. My husband had just packed for a last-minute business trip, kissing me goodbye like it was just another normal day. But something about that moment stayed with me. The way he didn't look back, the silence that followed as his car disappeared down the road. That's when it hit me. I was completely alone. The house felt colder, the air heavier, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I wasn't anyone's priority. I tried to fill the silence, clean the kitchen twice, rearrange the living room, even attempted baking, something he always joked I was terrible at. But nothing worked. The loneliness kept creeping in, slow and steady, until I couldn't ignore it anymore. That's when I decided to take a walk to clear my mind, hoping maybe to feel something different. I ended up near the stables just outside town, a place I had passed 100 times but never really noticed. That day, something pulled me in. That's where I met Storm, a beautiful, strong black horse with the gentlest eyes I had ever seen. He was different, calmer, like he could feel everything I wasn't saying out loud. The stable owner asked if I wanted to feed him, maybe brush him down a little. I said yes before I even thought about it. What happened next wasn't anything wild or reckless. It was quiet, real. Something about being with Storm made the silence feel less empty. What started as a harmless visit turned into something deeper, a secret I never expected to keep. And if I'm being honest, I still don't know if I crossed a line. But what I do know is that day changed everything. I kept going back to the stables. At first, I told myself it was just something to pass the time while my husband was away, harmless. But each visit felt more personal than the last. The way Storm would walk up to me without hesitation, the way his breath warmed my hand, the way he listened, it felt like he understood me better than most people ever had. That connection wasn't just comforting, it was addictive. I found myself sharing things I hadn't told anyone, speaking out loud in that quiet barn. I told him about how distant my marriage had become, how I often felt like a ghost in my own home. No judgment, no advice, just presence. It might sound crazy, and maybe it was, but when you're deeply lonely, even the smallest connection can feel like a lifeline. Mr. Calhoun, the stable owner, was kind but kept his distance. He noticed how often I came by, and one day he said, "Storm doesn't usually take to people, but he trusts you." That hit harder than I expected. Trust. It had been so long since I had felt truly trusted or trusted anyone back. Mr. Calhoun let me help with feeding and cleaning. It gave me a sense of purpose. I wasn't just waiting around anymore. Still, with every visit, something else started to grow. Something I didn't want to admit. I began dreading my husband's return. The silence at home felt safer than the coldness between us. We hadn't truly talked in months, maybe longer. And now, with Storm, I had something that made me feel seen. It scared me how easily I slipped into that world. How badly I didn't want to let it go. One afternoon, I found myself standing in the barn long after sunset. I had lost track of time. My phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from my husband. I stared at the screen, chest tight. I didn't want to call him back. Not yet. Maybe not at all. That night, I dreamed of hooves pounding through fog, of being carried away, free and wild. When I woke up, I wasn't sure if it was just a dream or a warning. Something had shifted, and I couldn't unfeel it. The next morning, I avoided my phone. I didn't want to hear my husband's voice, not while everything inside me still felt so unsettled. I told myself I'd call him later, once I sorted out my thoughts. But deep down, I already knew that wasn't true. At the stables, Storm was waiting near the fence, just like always. It was as if he could feel my unrest. I walked straight to him, pressed my forehead against his, and let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. Mr. Calhoun came by a little while later and asked if I could help transport some supplies into town. It was the first time he trusted me with anything outside the barn. I didn't hesitate to say yes. Maybe I just needed a distraction. Or maybe I just wanted to feel useful. While we drove, he glanced at me and asked gently, "You okay? You seem far away lately." I forced a smile and nodded, but I think he knew I was lying. There was something fatherly about him. Not nosy, just observant. It made me feel even more exposed. Later that evening, I saw something on my husband's social media. A photo, him out with colleagues, laughing, holding a drink. It should have made me happy to see him relaxed. But instead, I felt a strange emptiness. almost jealousy, not of the people around him, but of the ease he seemed to find away from home. And then came the message. Can we talk? Something's not right. I stared at it for a long time. Did he sense it too, the gap growing between us? Or was it something else entirely? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moments at the stables. The way Storm responded to me. The quiet understanding we shared. It wasn't crazy. Something real was happening. Not romantic. Not physical. But deeply emotional. And maybe that was even more dangerous. Because as the days passed, I found myself choosing the barn over my own home. Choosing silence over awkward conversations. Choosing a horse's loyalty over a man I no longer recognized. Something was coming. I could feel it. I just didn't know which part of my life would fall apart first. Now, when I walk between the stalls at sunset, I feel something I hadn't in a long time. Belonging. Not to someone. Not to a house filled with furniture and silence. But to myself. Storm watches me with those deep, knowing eyes, as if he understands how many versions of me I had to shed just to get here. Sometimes, I sit on the edge of the barn, boots dusty, hands smelling of hay and freedom, and I just let the time pass. Slow, unhurried, unafraid. Life, I realized, doesn't always come back to you in big, sweeping moments or acts of bravery. Sometimes it rebuilds itself in tiny, quiet pieces. A step outside the front door. A word spoken without expecting an answer. A horse resting his head in your palm, saying, "You're still here and that's enough." Mr. Calhoun never asked about that night, and I'm thankful for that. Some hurts don't need to be explained. They just become a part of who you are. Over time, familiar faces around town started greeting me more naturally. "How are the horses?" "Storm's looking strong today." Little phrases, little connections. I, who had felt invisible even in my own life, was finally seen, not as someone's wife, not as a broken promise, but as a whole person, scars and all. Sometimes at night, when I close up the barn and breathe in the scent of rain-soaked wood and open fields, I think about the woman who once drove across town with a heart in pieces, believing she was searching for an escape. She found something much harder and far more beautiful. She found herself. And now, when the storms roll in and the thunder shakes the ground, I don't hide anymore. I stay. I listen. I remember. Sometimes what feels like an ending is just the beginning, disguised. And sometimes, surviving isn't about running away, it's about choosing to remain. A few months later, the barn felt like home in ways my old house never did. I wasn't just visiting anymore, I was part of it. Mr. Calhoun, who rarely trusted anyone easily, offered me a permanent place on the team. It wasn't a grand offer, no ceremony or big promises. Just a quiet, simple, "We could use someone like you around here." And for the first time in a long time, I said yes without hesitation. No second-guessing, no wondering if I was doing the right thing. I simply knew. Storm remained by my side, a constant in a life that had once felt so fragile. We spent long mornings together, riding through the misty trails, learning to trust each other in ways that words could never capture. He taught me patience, strength, and that sometimes the softest things in life are the ones that leave the deepest marks. I even started meeting new people, riders, trainers, visitors passing through. At first, it scared me, opening up even a little. But little by little, conversation by conversation, I realized that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means carrying it with you differently, lighter, wiser. It means building new memories, not to replace the old, but to remind yourself that life can still bloom in unexpected places. One crisp autumn morning, standing by the fence watching the leaves fall like golden rain, Mr. Calhoun came up beside me. "You've changed," he said simply. And for once, I didn't flinch at the thought. I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle deep in my chest. "Yeah," I said. "I guess I finally let myself." And maybe that's the real story. Not about a broken marriage, or even a stormy night that changed everything. But about how sometimes the hardest thing isn't leaving. It's staying. Staying through the ache, the uncertainty, the silence. Staying long enough to find out who you are when everything else falls away. And if you're lucky, if you're brave enough to stay, you might just find that the life waiting for you is bigger, wilder, and more beautiful than you ever could have imagined.